Debra Soon started off as a broadcast journalist and ended up interviewing all four of Singapore's Prime Minister. She was promoted to MD at Channel News Asia and then Chief Marketing Officer at MediaCorp. Next, she became Head of Group Corporate Management at Tanjong International and is now Group Head of Marketing and Comms at Singlife. Debra Soon is in the studio and you're watching Savills Shares. Thank you for joining us on Savills Shares, and today we have Debra Soon in the studio. Welcome, Debra.
Hi, Jack.
Okay, tell us something that most people do not know about who Debra Soon is.
Oh, wow. I think most people don't really know my full career path and trajectory. Most people don't know who I am. I mean, you just happen to know me because I worked with you. But I'll give you a little anecdote. I started as a broadcast journalist, as you said, and very early on in my career, there was this incident where I was at a press conference with Mr. Kuan, right? It was, I can't remember what it was. It was probably on a ministerial pay or something. Anyway, he had the whole press corps in front of him. I was quite a young rookie journalist. And I went up to ask a question, right? And I identified myself. So, Mr. Lee is quite particular that, I must tell you who you are, where you came from. So I went up to the mic and said, Debra, Mr. Lee, Debra from, I think, TCS, at the time. And then Mr. Lee went, Debra who? Because you asked me who is Debra Soon, right? And it was just so strange because after that he launched into I wouldn't say a tirade, but he launched into a soliloquy about how young people today are so westernized. They take on these names, they don't remember their heritage. So fortunately, I had the ability to clarify and say that actually Debra is my given name. I'm Catholic. Okay, my surname is Soon. Right? And I still managed to ask the question I wanted to ask. So it was hilarious because in those days, the Straits Times SPH Press Corps had a whole lot of them there and they had transcribers, right? So back when they went back, there were these transcripts being done, this whole portion about Mr. Lee having a go at Miss Debra and, was circulated among the journalists. So it was a good laugh. It was a lesson for me in a few things, humility, right? Professionalism, identify yourself properly because it's just how you turn up, how you show up, right? And it's not about identifying yourself properly. It's also important because for Mr. Lee, it's about understanding the context of who you are, where you come from, right? Which organization, maybe what thinking of. It was also for him a chance to buy some time to size you up a little bit. But yeah, that was a lesson learned when I was a young broadcast journalist. Okay, so that's one of my early career lessons which I learned. And it kind of became a full circle thing because eventually, like in 2015, I was responsible for the entire coverage of his funeral. And from that very early thing to that funeral coverage, I learned so much over the years in journalism, in broadcasting. And I learned so much also from him, right? Just handling that coverage in terms of leadership and what it means in the corporate world. Eventually, journalism teaches you a lot of things, right? It teaches you the importance of understanding your content, being on top of it. It teaches you about asking questions because you have to be curious about people. I think journalists innately are kepos. They want to know about you and your story. They have to want to tell that story, right? And these are things which leaders in the corporate world need to know. You need to know how to ask questions. You need to know that you don't have all the answers and that asking questions leads you to what you don't know, leads you to understanding and leads you to leadership.
That's so resonating with me because I often said kiasu and kepo is a virtue.
Can get you killed though, have to be careful. It's the other thing, right? And a friend of mine who wrote a book, his name is Tony Lauren. He runs Zero Risk. He basically runs training for journalists in hostile environments, and I had introduced him to CNA a long time ago. I recently read his book, and he says, in times of danger, people are running away from a war, for example, in the Middle East. The journalists are running towards the danger to cover it.
Yes.
Over the years, I've had journalists do that, the correspondence, whether it's a riot, whether it's, So journalists are a bit strange in that sense. They want to bring you the story. They want to tell what's important. It's very passion and purpose motivated. It's something which has been a thread in what I do, I feel. I mean, I was in that job for a long time. I was in news for maybe 20 years. I don't think you ever leave it, but those lessons that you bring and that innate desire to want to tell a story is important, which is important. I think it also helps in leadership in organizations.
Well, I was going to follow and ask you, from journalist to leadership positions, how do you transit from talent to leader?
Okay, so I will probably have to take you through some pivot points in my career, some key points in my career where this kind of happened, right? I started as a journalist. Eventually one day I ended up, 2004 Boxing Day, I happened to be the most senior editor in the newsroom. Everybody was on leave. The chief editor was on leave. The MD was on leave. Boxing Day, nobody worked. End of the year, right? For that week until January 1st is over, nobody really senior is around. And most people are away. If you all remember, that was the day of the Boxing Day tsunami. So as a journalist, I was, like I said, assignments editor, I was one of 5 maybe, but I was the most senior person around. I had to decide on the spot that day and the subsequent days as it became clear the scale of the disaster. It was CNA's first big disaster coverage. I had to send colleagues out into disaster zones. Colleagues not been trained in disaster training. I sent the men out first, hoping that their NS training would put them in good stead. But eventually I had to send the female journalists out, right? Chinese reporters, everybody, every language. We went to Bali, went to Phuket, went to Maldives. There were so many places to go to bring this human dimension of this story, an important story out to the world. We were the best place to do it, right? Among all the international networks. And our first big test. And for me, that responsibility, leadership was really about taking care of people. I had sleepless nights. I was worrying about my staff in the field, more so than the editorial story, right? I had to worry about both. But we were sending people out. I didn't know what the conditions were. Pretty bad, as it turned out. The only support they had was each other, right? MINDEF, for some who went into business, in the end, the teams that went to Aceh had to go on their own as well. They had no money, no food. They had a little bit of supplies, probably for instant noodles and some, clarifying tablets, right, for water. And I really had to think about them and their families and be responsible for that. So a few things happened after that, which we had to institute, like post-disaster coverage counseling, right? A lot of crew didn't want to go. An unsolicited offer came along soon after that. And it was for WPL Corporation Limited. And they basically offered me nearly double what I was getting. And at the time, I was a mother of 2 living in HDB, 2 young kids. But it wasn't just about the money, it was about purpose, and it was the opportunity to learn and grow. So I took that job. It was a corporate job. I learned so much too. And then 3 years later, I ended up going back to MediaCorp as chief editor, right, at CNA. And I learned, and that career transition just showed me that nothing has to be linear. You should take advantage of opportunities which come along and make the most of them to learn and to grow. And that's very important.
And what's in your vast career as a leader has been the hardest decision that you have to make?
Oh, wow. There were many hard decisions that had to be made, particularly around people and resources. Okay, so maybe I moved the story along to when I became chief customer officer. So after I left, I went back as chief editor, eventually became MD of the channel, and then I was responsible for Mr. Lee's funeral coverage, as I said earlier. After that, I was moved to chief customer officer at a time of digital disruption, right? There was a lot of streamlining to be done. There were a lot of difficult decisions to be made. Actually, we probably made those decisions also in news earlier on when we had early retirement schemes and so on. You need to right-size the organization. But it was much more apparent when I was chief customer officer, right? I had to shut radio stations. I had to shut TV station. I had to shut Octo. We had to shut print editions. We had to really transform to be digital ready, to be social media ready. And it was difficult. I mean, there were many difficult decisions. I wouldn't say one was more difficult than the other. I mean, you had to decide on people. You decide on resources. You decide what would work. You decide on new strategies. At the end of the day, you really had to, while you're transforming and changing, bring people along with you. And you need to communicate well and clearly. I think people understand if you tell them. Unfortunately, you really cannot tell people before the announcement. And those are all difficult decisions.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the digital disruption because obviously in the last few years, we've seen so much of that, not just in the media, but even in the financial sector.
Yes.
So what has been your North Star, in those moments of uncertainty?
I think it's always remembering why you're doing what you're doing. For me, I think purpose has always been important in my work. It has to resonate. It has to be that I'm helping and people or an organization get better. And whatever I contribute has to do that. I mean, after the funeral coverage, which was basically something of a massive scale, months and years of preparation, a lot of stress. Nobody will really ever understand the sort of things and decisions I had to make at key moments. But it was about presenting the best face of Singapore to the world, respecting Mr. Lee's legacy, and honoring him, right? And we managed to do all that, but I had to pull so many people along. But it was about purpose. Everybody united around a purpose. Leadership was about getting people behind that purpose, bigger than themselves. To me, success or work isn't about personal success for me. It's from those experiences, it's what you manage to do with the team and bring them along is more important. And that has always been, if you say North Star. I mean, after that job, I mean, as long as I used to say that, as long as I can contribute and am appreciated for what I can contribute, that's good enough, right? I mean, today, everybody talks about personal brand. There's so much out there on LinkedIn, all this digital. It's AI disruption. It's how the world has shifted, how this generation works. I feel old, when I talk about these things, right? I mean, it's like people look for each other on LinkedIn and they paint such a wonderful picture of themselves on LinkedIn, right? Use ChatGPT, whatever it is, whatever AI tools you use to do. I'm like, you read these things, you're like, really? I'm not of that generation where we were hired through LinkedIn. Though now, maybe if I need a job, I will have to do it. But it's more than that, right? It's more than getting yourself out there. And that to me is more important. I mean, it's been a thread. I mean, I've done, when I first started work, it was quite funny. Whenever I did a story, I felt I had to go and I contribute to something. Like when I first started as a broadcaster, I did a story on drug use among youth, young people, because I was working for at one stage with Vibes, with a teenage Newswatch, right? And Vibes, right? So I did something. And after that, I decided to volunteer with the Singapore Anti-Narcotics Association as a volunteer aftercare officer, which I did for like 4 years or so, right? A couple of case studies. And then I did a story on Aikido, and I ended up taking up Aikido until I got pregnant with my second child, then I stopped. And then I was covering Mr. Goh Chok Tong, I was doing a lot of stuff, and I ended up volunteering with Southeast CDC, which is a grassroots organization, right? And that's where I really saw that policy can be very different on the ground. Without an understanding of what's going on the ground, policy can have very unintended effects. And all these grassroots, I mean, it was very fulfilling because I feel I'm contributing in a different way, right? And then there was the National Council of Problem Gambling before the casinos were set up and so on. So that's always been for me what I wanted to do, contribute in a bigger way than yourself. And remember that you're only one small thing. But do your best with the talents you have and contribute.
Well, I mean, you have been taking on so much diverse responsibilities and different industries as well. Almost to the point of reinvention. What have you learned from tackling all these different roles? And what are some things that leaders need to learn how to embrace all these diverse roles in their life and career?
I think it is about when an opportunity comes, stepping up to and taking it and seizing it. most of my career changes happened because an opportunity presented itself. I told you about the WBL one, right? And then the call came to go back to news, and I went back to news. And then again, shifting from news into the chief customer officer role, also the boss asked me to. I was like, okay, sure. And then leaving MediaCorp finally, again, second time after like another 10 years, so probably 23 years or something, right? Was because a client reached out to me. I mean, at first I thought it was not really serious. Then it became a very serious thing. And it was because, and it was a non-specific role in a way. The title was Group Corporate Management that he came up with in the end. But it was about change and transformation for his industry and for his company. And to this day, I'm very grateful. I mean, it was a little bit manic because it was 9 markets in the region that I was traveling to every month, 3 weeks out of 4. Right? Every Tuesday to Friday, almost every Tuesday to Friday, 3 weeks out of 4, I was out of the house. I was out of Singapore traveling. But that really opened my eyes about how retail, business is car trade, right? It was from manufacturing, distribution to retail, to how money is even repatriated back to Singapore, the different environments, the different cultural nuances, each country, the stereotypes that we all have, different nationalities, Taiwan, Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia, Philippines. It was 9 markets. It was a very steep learning curve, but it was really learned a lot. But it was a lesson in that when you give instructions in a different cultural context, you need to be mindful that it's not just top down, and people need to understand conditions on the ground to bring people along with you. Otherwise, your well-intended solution to a problem just not going to work. Singlife, again, different job. Somebody approached me for this job to say that I don't need another actuary. I don't need somebody who knows anything about insurance. I need change and transformation, change management. It was an M&A, right? I went up, sure. I'm like, why not, right? Like I said, as long as you can appreciate what I do, I was told, okay, brand, we need to rebrand, we need to relaunch the brand because it's a merger. We cannot afford for people not to know our brand. Otherwise, we might lose the customers and policyholders might lose. So that was a big job not big job, but it was the first big thing I had to do. And then from brand, it became communications, internal, external, and then it became marketing, digital marketing. I'm learning every day. MarTech is under me. We'll talk about AI. So I have become CMO in a way. I handle comms. I also handle facilities because I did that in Tanchong, but as in projects set up for showrooms and so on. But I had to, I'm in charge of the facilities team. We did a massive move recently, right? And every opportunity you get, you learn new things. And that's very important to me.
I guess that's, crucial to me as well, because I always feel that once I stop learning, that's, I'll get bored. And it's time to move on as well.
Yes.
But, so that desire to learn is inherent, hopefully, in every job that we approached, and go from there.
Yes. And I guess you asked me about how is it this different industries, how do you... I think journalism teaches you to be very adaptable and agile because whatever the case is, there's airtime to be filled and a story has to be done. Right. And it has to be a credible news story, right? 9 o'clock news out, and discipline as well, right? So it teaches you to be flexible. And we are specialists every day of something different. At least in news, we are specialists every day of something different. Of course, that most times you get in-depth when you do a documentary and so on. So I think that helped. And that curiosity, always wanting to meet and learn and tell a new story.
I see there's a parallel between a journalist and a marketeer in the sense that you are creating something that feeds somebody who wants to know. So my question would then be, how do you know the story that you are creating and chasing is something that your target market, in this case, the audience, wants to learn or know about?
I guess it is about curiosity and what you would also want to know, right? It's learning to ask hard questions, what is the story behind the story, right? Marketing today, what everybody wants is on socials, based on your algorithms, based on the reach, what people want. But I think telling a good story is still fundamental in both journalism and marketing, right? Content marketing. I mean, marketing has become much more content marketing centric and so on. And because the platforms have all disintermediated because of social media. There are so many different things, so many things people are selling to you. Social media is no longer social. Social media has become a tool for marketeers and for products to sell to you. I don't know whether anybody here remembers, but when we started Facebook, it was about connecting people and meeting people, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Making
how
friends.
I use my social media, right? So that my friends know what I'm doing and keep in touch with me. I'm not trying to sell or position myself as smarter, better, or I have this lifestyle that's fantastic that other people want, which is, I guess, what social media has become. I mean, I think some of us still use it to keep in touch with people, right? And show. But yeah, I think storytelling is still the same, whether you're a journalist or a marketeer.
And where does storytelling fit in running of a team or a company for that matter?
A company. Well, any company exists to sell a product or service, right? So telling that company story and why it exists, what is the customer it wants to help, is probably what marketing is supposed to be doing today. Right? Comms and marketing and PR. It is whether it is a service, whether you're a community organization, whether you are a big corporate, whether you're selling insurance, solutions for people. Insurance is about helping people manage their risk in life, right? It's all about storytelling. What is the story? What is the service you're providing? What is the story for the customer? Why should I be interested in you and what you're selling me?
And likewise with running your team itself.
Yeah.
Because
why do you want to work for this company?
Yeah.
What is the story you're trying to tell to the consumer? Does it resonate with you? I think it always helps if the job you do resonates with you. If it doesn't, it creates friction and you won't be able to stay long. I mean, you can be in a job just to earn money, but I don't think that's what longevity is about.
You spoke about coming to Singlife and having to bring together Aviva and Singlife and basically merging two brands, two culture. What are some of your non-negotiables when it comes to change management?
I think clarity of communication, clarity of purpose is important in direction. People can take change and people can take disruption if you're very clear why you're doing it, what's the objective, and what's your end goal. And that is very important. If people need to be let go, I think they can also accept if you're clear and you're fair. So clarity of communication utmost.
And Peter Drucker famously and allegedly says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, implying that you need a strong corporate culture to be able to implement a strong strategy. Who is responsible for what a corporate culture is and how should it be created?
Yeah, culture, is it top down, is it bottom up? I think it's a combination of both. But culture is not something that you talk about at a town hall. Culture is something that is lived and experienced. Right? People take cues from the way what is, for culture, what is recognized, what is celebrated, what is tolerated. And if it doesn't resonate, if the words don't resonate with actions, people also notice these things. Culture was a big focus. It is a big focus of what we do at Singlife because we had different cultures coming together, create that culture. We're quite dynamic. We've got a lot of young people. We set up a culture program office. It is a combination of two, right? It is top-down saying direction on this is where we go. This is what will help us get to our 5-year plan or 3-year plan, whatever the plan is, right? How do we get there? We need people to get there. And if people are not on board because culture is bad, then that's not good. So we have to also define a culture that we want. What is acceptable to us, what we want to celebrate, what we will tolerate, what we will not tolerate. So I feel it's a combination of both top-down and bottom-up because there's no way top-down can achieve it on your own, right? If it doesn't resonate with people who live and feel it, it will not work.
How do you implement it in a way that feels lived in?
Well, we had a cultural program office in Singlife where a lot of young people, different groups of stakeholder people come together and it has been quite successful, I think, in building what we've done. We get the young people involved, we get the MAs involved, we do all sorts of things. So it's very ground up. And we have culture reps in every team, right, to contribute towards this. So they will organize events, whether it's volunteering events, and then we have like games that they organize. But a lot of it is really like we just had our openings, getting different people involved in the opening. For instance, we had this we had this walk we organized from the old venue to the new venue, and we had a whole series of things. We had merchandise, we had games, we had food. I think you really need to let younger people do it. You need to give them a broad general direction, trust them to get it done, and let them do it. Right? Then it resonates. Give them a few, guidelines, right? Let them idea and execute. Trust them to do it.
Well, for a culture to succeed, you need people to, like you said, live the culture. So when you are hiring, how do you assess who's the best candidate in that sense and how they fit in to the intended culture?
I look at skill sets. Culture is important because we've gone through several rounds. I mean, I was hiring quite a bit at the start. He's for 2 years maybe, because our organization also has changed a lot. The culture also has evolved, right? Culture is evolution and progress. It doesn't stay still. And when you hire, besides skill sets, you make mistakes. Some people fit, some people don't, right? Some people like the volatility, some people don't. We were very VUCA at the start. We're much more stable and corporate now. But some people couldn't take that uncertainty, that volatility, and what's going on, what you're doing this, how come you're doing this now? So the agility, very techy, very tech startup kind of culture, and wanted more surety. So people will come and go. There's never a guarantee. And I feel also it's very understandable today for young people, Gen Zs, to after 2.5 years, 3 years, feel that they should move on. Because if they don't, they'll see on their CV it doesn't look good. I think in our time it was different. Loyalty meant a lot. Well, I also felt that I had a lot of opportunity to move into different functions and roles within the same organization, which allowed you to grow. It's true of large corporations or big banks, right? But today I think there's less certainty. And for young people, if you are seen to do a good job, anyway in our industry, in marketing and comms and so on, 2.5 years, skill sets are transferable, right? It's not so easy to go up if your job is the same. They get poached and they go up. Good for them.
So do you think uncertainty kills loyalty?
I wouldn't say uncertainty kills loyalty, but I think that the reality of today's environment is that while some people might be loyal, they want to stay. If an opportunity is good, they'll go. And it's nothing wrong with that because they need to do it for career advancement, for growth. You meet different people every day. You will work on a different project every day. It's just a part of growing.
You interview all our prime ministers in your career.
In one form or another, yes.
What are some insights that you've gleaned from observing them, speaking with them, that you think that's still relevant today?
I think our leaders, Singapore leaders, take a very long-term view. They don't look at things on a micro basis. They may, but what is more important is that long-term trajectory and how they're always thinking about the future for Singapore. What is next for us? The sense that we really are small and nobody really owes us a living is very important. And that is something that I think I've learned from them. That don't take for granted that today's success guarantees tomorrow, right? Whether both personally and both as a country. What worked in the past may not work again. So always challenging the norms. As a journalist, you're trained to challenge and ask questions, right? Sometimes people don't like it, but that's important. I think I learned that very much from Mr. Lee. They all are also very human. You'll never see it that not everybody will see them get angry. I think we had the privilege of noticing them in unguarded moments. So you understand what really mattered, what got people angry, why they get angry, when people are not working together well, when the things were not, when integrity was in question. I think that interviewing them meant a lot of things for me. I had to prepare, had to be on top of things, so that because Mr. Lee's reputation, everybody did, and that preparation is a skill that you take to whichever job. You need to be on top of things, right? You don't have to, you're asking questions, you don't need to know all the answers, but you need to have done your research. If you haven't done your research and your homework, how can you ask the right questions? So I think those are the things I learned about conducting those interviews.
That's one fine line between doing a research and asking the right questions, but there's also the other flip side, which is don't be afraid to ask questions.
Correct.
So how do you, marry the two in a way that still gives you courage to ask questions, even though you may not fully know whether that question is a silly question or not?
No, I used to I tell my team there's no such thing as a silly question, though then I'm like, actually there are. But yeah, because I find that still Singaporeans are very reticent in asking questions, right? I used to tell my reporters when I had reporters under me that don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. You are there to ask questions, right? And then get an answer that we can use for our stories. Let your editor take the call on the hit. Your job as reporter is to ask the questions, right? Don't be afraid. You go to press conference and ask the questions. What's the point of sending you, right? You're listening to other people's questions. Why, right?
And they all turn out the same stories.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't.
Or I guess because we're a broadcast chain, we have to get the soundbite, right? If you don't ask a question, you don't get the soundbite then out, right? What is your story? So that motivation to ask questions is always more when your training is broadcast. Actually, I don't even know where people today understand what broadcast is, It's like broadcasting is radio.
Well, this is broadcast,
No, that's not broadcasting. This is narrowcasting.
They're watching it on the YouTube or Spotify.
YouTube is narrowcasting. It's social media, right? You think about broadcast, right? Yeah.
It's been
It's
so
one to
fragmented.
all, right? Yeah. I mean, social media has now in a way become
Yes.
broadcast, but yeah, it's one to one in a way, right? But
Oh,
yeah,
I was asking somebody the other day, where do you get your source of news? They said YouTube,
Yeah, exactly.
social media,
Yes.
or TikTok.
That's what it is today.
Yeah. So there is, like I
That
said,
is
there is no
is
broadcast.
narrowcasting.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're watching what you want to watch, right? Or because the algorithm feed you what you help, right?
Yes.
And people get news from there. So not quite the same, but it does mean I think people think less about bigger picture things and are more consumed with narrow things, right? Okay, one very obvious thing to me is the types of stories that get people excited today. There are also the types of stories that used to get people excited in the past, but at least in the past, you would talk about bigger things. Okay, now because of the war in the Middle East, there are little explainers here and there, but you don't see it in you don't see it in social media. You don't see a lot of it, right? So the established news brands have to tell the story, and then they have to simplify the story, and then they have to put it into a format where it's either TikTok or social friendly, so that audiences see it. So it is a lot of work. I mean, it is like there's still a relevance for the big broadcast, but then you have all these other things and narrow channels that you have to fit.
Is that scary? I mean, considering that,
I don't think it's scary. Well,
yeah, I mean, considering that it seems that our source of news is getting narrower, and the generation of today may not be looking deeply enough at broad issues compared to the generation before.
yeah.
So where does that leave us?
That's a good question. I mean, you also have AI to chat to talk about how young people, generation today doesn't do research, but their research is keying in information too. I think we have to evolve and just accept that generational change is very drastic, right? So teaching young people to discern and understand is very important. To question your source of information is very important, not to take it wholesale, right? And to think and to read. And that's the thing, reading, right? I found myself also slipping on my reading habit. I used to read voraciously. I'm trying to pick it up again. So eyesight's not so good now, not so easy. But rediscovering that, resetting for myself. Podcasts are a new medium in a way. New-ish is like it's like radio but talk show, right? Radio talk show. Those are also quite interesting. They're quite Gen X, Gen Z, right? X, Y, sorry, Y and Z. I'm X. We are X. It's Y and Z, right? I mean, Stephen Butler and all these people, they are in their 30s, right? I find there's a lot to learn from these because it's about knowing the trends and knowing what's happening, knowing today what resonates with younger audiences, but also with older audiences, right? So it's always, I think, information, where you get it from, being hungry to know what's going on is very important. And we need to constantly instill this curiosity and hunger in young people.
And how do you do that as a leader in your team?
Well, one example is we onboarded an AI tool. There was a bit of resistance from my more senior guys, but we onboarded an AI tool to try to see how we can use it and to train my teams to use it. I onboarded last year, but we're still training people how to use it, right? Because there's some resistance. People use ChatGPT, but the importance of this tool is that it actually is something which the media advertising and PR professionals have come on board to do. So it will help you churn out everything from a content post, Instagram, socials, all the way to a news release. But you obviously need to sharpen, put the right information. It's very helpful. It will cut your time to market. And it's important to try these new tools. So I always try to ask to get new thinking, new tools in from my team and to think about how we are living up to the fact that we're supposed to be a digital disruptor and an innovator, right? Innovation is one of our values. So how do you constantly think of getting better and try new things?
It's not easy, but one has to try.
Yeah.
Now, across multiple sectors, you would have encountered people or even have moments where you have self-doubt. Imposter syndrome is something that we hear all the time these days. What would you say is the best way to manage self-doubt, self-worth, or even imposter syndrome?
Okay, imposter syndrome never existed when we were...
No.
It wasn't labeled as such. I think for me, when I became MD of Channel News Asia, it was a mindset shift because a lot of my seniors, basically everybody who ended up working for me were my seniors before. They taught me so much and I learned so much from them, and now I had to lead them, right? They were very kind. They taught me a lot and they were very respectful, and I'll forever, eternally be grateful to those people. So there was, I guess, a little bit of imposters. There was a little bit of self-doubt initially. Can I do this job? Then you don't have time to think about it after you just go, right? That was for me most of my career. You don't have time to think about it. Just do it.
You just chung.
Just do it. Yeah, there's this done. Maybe it was because it was news and the content is so quick, moves so quickly. Imposter, when I changed jobs, did I know anything about customer experience when I took on the Tan Chong job? Not really. Did I know anything about renovations and so on? Not really, but I learned. I learned along the way, right? And also because when you run P&L, which we had to do in MediaCorp, right? You run P&L, you learn to look at numbers, right? And because maybe I'm not a typical finance trained person, I look at it from a different way, and I will be able to pick out things. Why is this number up? What are we spending more on here? And I think this kind of discipline and training helps you. And whenever you have to go into a new job where, everything is about managing your costs, right? For better profitability. So you either cut costs, right? Or you increase your revenue. It's simple as that. Those are the two equations that you need to know. Right? Today is the same thing. So how do I get better ROI from every marketing dollar I spend? What are we spending on? Can we get better deals from the media that we use? Right? Which, because I have relationships with people in the media, I think really it's just trusting, working through it, trusting your teams to support you, and just getting the job done.
And trusting your gut too.
Yes, gut is not gut. Gut is actually experience telling you something, right? The one or two times that I didn't follow my gut instinct, the result was wrong. So I now, if there are doubts, you get different people to give you an input. This I learned from a previous boss, right? You have your lieutenants with your one downs, your two downs. You get their views on things because you want to hear different people's views. You want to hear, everybody comes from a different angle and context. And then from that, it sharpens the argument and then you make the call because you are the decision maker.
Right.
You have to be responsible for it.
Now, when you become a leader, you get less and less time and you need your team to step up and do the needful.
Yeah.
But because you've been doing certain tasks for so long in various roles, it becomes challenging to kind of just allow somebody else to take over
To let
and
go,
to do it the way that you feel it should be done.
Yes.
So how do you practice or master the art of letting go?
So I'm still learning too. I think I have let go quite a bit the last couple of years as I have matured. Because if you're not there, somebody needs to get the job done. I had an operation a couple of years ago, which put me on MC for about a month, basically for recovery. And during that period, even though I was working from home or whatever, I needed to let go to let my team step up. And I think they did, and they've done well. And learning to let go is, I think, I think because in news, when you write a story, you're a control freak. Because it's your story, your name's on it, right? Your face or your name is on it, right? And you're ultimately responsible for the accuracy of that product. So there's a lot of that. I think I have learned to let go a lot more over the years. I still clear copy, customer communication. Every letter I say I want to see, but I've learned to let some things go. LinkedIn post, okay, please go like that. I don't have to see everything, right? I mean, that's what it is. You must empower your teams to learn and to fail too. Yeah.
It's scary, but it's a necessity.
Yeah. I also need to learn to stop protecting them so much, right? So that they can step up.
Looking back in your career, what would be one decision that you would still say, I would still make that? And what's another one that with hindsight you said, I would change that?
One was the career move out of MediaCorp. What would I change? I don't really think there was something I've changed. There were mistakes, like I said, when I went against my gut feel, but I don't think I would have changed them. There was a setback that taught us a lesson, but not a decision I made that I would change. I don't think there's a single decision I made that would have changed. At least work-wise, no.
Okay.
The setback I can talk about, which was we were courting Astro Malaysia to carry Channel News Asia in Malaysia. It's a long story, but newspapers and broadcast not exchanged between two countries, news especially, right? So we were courting Astro for a couple of years, and finally Astro head agreed to meet me with my distribution head. So we thought, all right, great, we're finally going to get carried, right? And not only do we had to pay to get carried, and it was a significant amount of money to get carried in Astro. So we went up. Long story short, in a meeting, I'm sorry, it's still not the time. So I had gone to KL to do this, right? So I remember as we left KL, I was so upset that I had to go to a store at the KLIA and buy myself a cuff as a retail therapy. But from that, we came up with a strategy, and we courted TMNet, which is a telco, right? Right. Yes, you understand the broadcast and the not as big in numbers, but eventually we'll carry on TMNet. It was a lesson that not everything will always go your way, but stick to it, find a strategy. Maybe the time's not right then, but stick to it, and one day you'll get it done.
Do you remember when you were 21?
Actually, no, I try not to. Actually, I do.
If you get a chance
I was in the UK.
Oh, you're in the UK then?
Yeah, I was still studying. Yeah.
So if you get a chance to go back in time and speak to your 21-year-old self,
oh dear,
what would you say to her?
Yeah, learn to relax a little bit in your 30s, your 20s and 30s, and to remember to go easy on yourself. So I told my 21-year-old to relax when he was 30. Yes, to go a little bit easy on yourself. I think my 30s, that was the time I was in news, right? And post WBL as MD, I spent so much time at work. I think I was quite hard on myself and on people around me. So maybe also be a bit less hard on people around you. Eventually it'll sort itself out.
Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Debra. You have given us so much gems from your life and gems on what a leader can do and can accomplish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Savills Shares. You can catch all the episodes of Season 1, 2, and 3 on Spotify and YouTube Music. Till the next one, God bless. This podcast is for general information only and should not be taken as professional advice. Savills accept no responsibility or liability for any direct or indirect or any consequential loss from the use of, reference to, or the reliance on this podcast or its content.